What are the growing biologicals markets? What do companies need to know to get into these markets? And how can companies stay profitable in markets experiencing a lot of competition? Sebastian, we'll go ahead and get started with you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Great to be on this webinar, and thanks for the introduction. So where are the growing biologicals markets? Quite some time ago, it was felt that Europe was and the US were leading that market growth, which was probably true because it was demand driven. Now, there's demand from consumers wanting more biological produce, and that was driving the markets. That has now shifted, and there's a lot of growth, of course, in Brazil, which is very well known. I think that's probably the leading market at the moment. And but also in Asia, growth is there. What do companies need to know to get into these markets? Well, essentially, we believe from our experience that finding the right partners to go into the market is a very critical subject, especially for smaller and medium-sized companies that don't have global reach. So it was often believed that going only with some of the major companies, the top-tier R&D companies, was the best market access. We believe from some experience that actually mid-sized companies are probably a better choice, because they'll give you more time and you'll have a greater local knowledge as to the opportunities that are there. We in Europe are, in particular, which is where I'm based, in Germany and Heidelberg, are struggling with regulations, which is a real issue. So regulatory timelines are terrible. And although there is some movement, it is glacial. So that's a hindrance. Whereas in Brazil and in Asia, there are certain more incentives for companies to move in. And I think that's very, very positive. So finally, then, how can companies stay profitable in markets experiencing a lot of competition? I think the focus again must be on finding the right partner. I mean, it's getting your product into market and making sure that you have specialist companies that can steward your product in the biological field, because very often they are not simple plug and play products that work under all conditions, but you need to know about how the product works and how it fits. Hopefully you have a good low cost of goods sold, so you can be profitable in your market and then build trust with farmers long term. So that would be my take on those 3 points to start off with.
All right, thank you. And Kevin, we'll go ahead with you next. What are the growing biologicals markets? What do companies need to know to get into these markets? And how can companies stay profitable in markets experiencing a lot of competition?
Well, from our perspective, I think we see opportunities for growth in biological and biorational products across all markets and sectors. It's true that Europe has been a focus, but we see accelerating markets growing in Asia and South America. But there are some drivers across global markets and that are favorable towards the adoption of biological products. We see the climatic volatility, regulatory constraints, which Sebastian's commented on, tighter residue and quality standards, and importantly, a shrinking toolbox of conventional crop protection products, which means that alternatives are being sought and ways of actually mitigating the risk of actually relying or over-reliance on conventional products, which leads ultimately to, or can lead to, resistance problems. So all of these factors lead growers to think more broadly about crop production, of which crop protection is a part. And there's a recognition that actually they can no longer rely on the sort of historical and sort of traditional blockbuster chemical approach. Other factors play into this in terms of choice of varieties, of course, and irrigation, nutrition, and all of those things. Biologicals, in particular, I think, are going to play an important role in being part of a more holistic approach, an integrated program towards crop protection, supporting those conventional products which are left in the market and the opportunities in not just in the high value cropping sector where biologicals perhaps have had an established position, but perhaps now moving more in towards the into row crops and broadacre crops. In terms of attractiveness to companies such as ourselves, proof of concept is critical. We get multiple approaches every week from biological startups with the next best thing in biologicals, but there's a limit to what we can how much time we can spend evaluating all of these. So I think anybody who comes, with a developed proof of concept that can convince us that it meets a need that is evident in the marketplace. And I would say it's important for companies to spend time looking at the market and seeing where those unmet needs are. Where are the challenges for growers? Where are there no longer conventional chemical solutions which biologicals could eventually replace? And I think that would be a good approach, because that would certainly be much more engaging in terms of a prospect to us as a potential partner to develop, register, and ultimately market such products. Profitability, of course, is clear. That has to be something that's a fundamental aspect that has to be right for both parties, and I think partners that we work with need to have a good understanding of what it will take to scale up, and what that means in terms of ultimate cost of goods. So all of those things are important factors, I think, when approaching a multinational business looking for a partner to develop and market their products.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Jose, we'll go with you next. Where are the growing biologicals markets? What do companies need to know to get into these markets? And how can companies stay profitable in markets experiencing a lot of competition?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me invitation to participate in the webinar. First of all, I super agree with the comment of Sebastian and Kevin. In terms of market, in my opinion, okay, it's clear that the biological market is growing and growing. This is the first point. But it's clear there are two different scenarios in my point of view. One is, as Sebastian said, North America and Europe is probably one of the largest one, but it's a super mature market when is growing, but not as fast as other areas. That I would like to point out that Asia Pacific and also Latam, Brazil, of course, is growing like a rocket in compared with Europe or North America, no? But not in terms of geographical areas or regional, in terms of crops, fruits, vegetable, high value horticultural crops, in my opinion, show a fantastic and faster adoption, no? It's clear that row crops is the parties in the row crops, is clear. But when I see that the market is growing faster, it's in more high value horticultural crops, no? And related to the second question, that is, okay, what is the thing that, or information and the knowledge that the company need to know to go into this market in a profitable way? For me, there are 5 or 6 points that is bright in the stone. One is local agronomy data and proof of concept. Here we're not talking about chemical product. We're talking about biological solution, and this is super context dependent. So type of soils, type of climate condition, different crop management. So to get local agronomy and positioning, and not only basically global claims, big mistake in biological, is more local. This is one point. The second that is for me is fundamental is regulatory. Regulatory is, of course, a gatekeeper, but also is a differentiator factor, no? But if you are not able to translate the registration information to the value for the farmer, I'm sorry, but zero interest. So regulatory is critical, but we have to transform this regulatory data into value creation for the farmer, no? The third pillar, in my opinion, is biological always have to fit in an integrated program. If you try to go to the biological just to say that it's a substitution for chemical, it's a disaster. So biological is and has to be an integrated program together with other options. And this is for me the mother of the battles. And finally, technical go-to-market and technical support all the time. Why? Because finally, there is a big gap between the lab, fantastic formulation, to the field. And in the middle, there are technical support, because this is a product that is really linked to the soil, to the environmental condition. So it's very, very important to have a very technical go-to-market with a technical support. And I would like to say, biological mindset. I mean, okay, biological, of course, is a complementary solution for chemistry, of course, uh, but you need different approach. Your commercial people, your company has to be focused on biological. Otherwise, I'm sorry, but it will be very difficult to have a result. And finally, basically thinking globally around the plant. Biological is not one product, one solution. It's thinking globally around the plant. This is critical point. No, for me, this is the 5 or 6 elements that, in my opinion, play a fundamental role to build your activity, your business, and biological market.
Great, thank you. And finally, Ignacio, where are the growing biologicals markets from your perspective? What do companies need to know to get into these markets, and how can companies stay profitable in markets that experience a lot of competition?
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today. Wow, honestly, it's very tough to be here at the last because all my colleagues cover all the points, But anyway, very good for them. It's good to hear that they are looking for Latin America, because you're welcome, guys, to come here, and we are ready to help you to land in here in Latin America. So, in that dreamer, when we look at the biological industry today, the opportunity is still very strong globally, honestly, but growth is becoming more selective. Not every market will grow the same way, and not every company entering those markets will succeed. We continue to see very attractive momentum in places like Brazil, Sebastian mentioned this, India also, the United States, Mexico, and several markets across Europe. In our view, Brazil remains one of the most strategic biological markets in the world because of its scale, high pest pressure, progressive growers, and of course, an openness to innovation. But I will also say the real growth story right now is not only about countries or regions, it is about needs, in my opinion. Farmers today are looking for solutions that improve yield, help manage stress, reduce resistant pressure, and fit into the integrated crop programs. That is why we continue to see a strong interest in biofungicides, bionematicides, seed treatments, and biostimulants with clear economic value. In particular, during the last year, we saw an increase in phosphorus solubilizers and nitrogen-fixing products for non-legume crops are gaining interest, because this type of product help farmers to use nutrients better and reduce dependence on traditional chemical fertilizer while supporting yield. For companies entering these markets, a common mistake is believing that once the product is registered, the job is done. Honestly, that when is the real work begins, if you understand what I mean. Success usually depends on 3 things, according to my point of view. I think that the first thing is understanding the local farming reality. Crops, climate, logistics, pest pressure, and growers actually make the decisions, And the second is building the right commercial route market. Sebastian mentioned this, and all of them mentioned this, And I think that this is essential, In many regions, the right distributor or the strategic partner can accelerate the year of progress, And the third position that I need important to mention is providing consistent performance. In biologicals, trust is built in the field. Local trials, technical support, and reliable results matter much more than marketing claims. Now, if we talk a little bit about profitability, this is where the market is changing very fast, Sarah. Competition has increased a lot. Portfolio are expanding, and price pressure is really in every category. So companies need to move from a poor growth mindset to one of value creation. The most successful companies today are staying focused. They choose segments where they can differentiate. They stay close to farmers and channel partners. They generate demand instead of only pushing inventory, They control costs, and of course, they protect pricing by demonstrating value to the farmers. Because the reality is simple. Selling a high value with a low margin is not sustainable. So in a word, I think that the next winner will be the companies that combine innovation with execution, and grow with profitability. Thank you, Sarah. Sorry.
Great. Thank you so much.